What do you think about when you hear the word video games? What is the first idea that pops into your head? Well, that really depends on how you grew up. And for some people, it might mean it's a hobby that lets them relax and interact with others and make new friends. But others see it in a more negative manner, that it hinders and interferes with other people's lives and causes them to commit violent acts. It really depends on you. But that doesn't really matter because, as a lot of you have seen with a lot of recent mass shootings, like the El Paso shooting, where 23 people were killed and 23 were injured, the mass shootings always create a opportunity for gun violence and guns in general to come to light. But when most politicians are asked about these issues, most of them choose to ignore the issue and instead focus more on the shooter's gaming references. Like, for example, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, when he was asked about the issue with the El Paso shooting, instead of focusing on the more egregious acts and more of the reason he committed his crimes, he decided to focus on the video game, the shooter reference in his manifesto, Call of Duty. Most politicians, when they're asked about issues like this related to guns, they refuse to address them in fear that big organizations like the NRA might come after them. So instead, they blame video games. But after listening to my speech, you'll be able to see both the positives and the negatives of video games and why blaming video games really stops us from addressing the main issue. And it's time we stop blaming video games for these tragedies, but instead focus on dealing with the main issues and letting people enjoy their hobbies. Video games have many ways of affecting people depending on their usage of them. There are positives and negatives. When thinking of video games as a medium of entertainment, there are always negatives, but the positives far outweigh them. Some of these positives can include creating an open environment for people to interact and improve their social skills. Others include improved hand-eye coordination. Some others include improved mood and making people have less anxiety over time. But there's still a lot more. Studies have shown that after playing multiple strategy games and role-playing games, the subject's problem-solving skills improved greatly, while others who played first-person shooters had quicker decision-making and faster reaction time compared to their non-gamers. But mostly this was due to first-person shooters' quick pace and quick change of settings. But video games also play a key role in maintaining cognitive functions like memory and attention span in older adults. They can also be used as a learning mechanism for younger children to help them grow and understand the material more. But as with everything positive, there's always negatives. The effects of video games on developing mind has been a very heated debate, with a lot of studies showing video games, especially violent ones, leading to children developing less empathy and being less desensitized to violence. As stated by Isabella Gatanik in the article, video game play may provide learning, health, and social benefits, reviews find. Important research has already been conducted for decades on the negative effects of gaming, including addiction, depression, and aggression. And we are certainly not suggesting that this should be ignored. Another major negative effect of video games is the addicting factor, as video games are designed in their nature to keep you playing and keep you coming back, with rewarding you with small rewards after completing tasks, or by giving you small levels of dopamines whenever you do anything in the game. It really depends. But most of the time, the games are created to create a dopamine dependence on them, especially for young children. With these negatives in mind, it makes sense why people are willingly are willing to blatantly blame video games when bad things happen. Blaming video games for teen misbehaviors and violent outbursts isn't anything new, as whenever it comes to first-person shooters. First-person shooters especially have been blamed for gamers' violent outbursts because of their violent nature and their openness to creating an environment where guns can be used to hurt other players. This often leads most people to believing that these gamers are willing to do those things in the games they see because of the violent nature of them. But as stated by Kevin McCarthy on Fox News, I've always felt that it's a problem for future generations and others. We've watched for studies shown before and what it does to individuals, and you look at these photos of how it took place and you see the action with the video games and others. But contrary to popular belief, there is no real connection with violent video games and violent actions committed by these gamers. As stated by Andrew Limbong in his article, video games are still blamed for gun violence despite studies showing no connection. What these studies found is a slight increase in annoyance because immediately after playing the game, but no actual violence. Blaming games only seems to be hurting us more, and most of the time the blame is not well deserved. In conclusion, in this speech, I shared with you both the positives and negatives and reasons why video games are blamed for mass tragedies. But it's time we stop blaming video games for these tragedies and using them as a scapegoat. Instead, we should focus on solving the main issue and stop blaming people for enjoying their hobby. So thank you for listening to my speech and have a good day.